The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the low hum of translated voices. Representatives from 7 different worlds sat in their assigned sections, each area designed for their species' needs. The air was thick with different breathing gases, carefully separated by energy fields. Counselor Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes as he approached the speaking platform. His reptilian skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his yellow eyes swept across the assembled delegates. Today marked 4,000 years since the cleansing, 4,000 years since the Council had made its most difficult but necessary decision. Fellow beings of the Council, Zethkar began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. Today we remember the day we saved our galaxy from chaos. The chamber fell silent. Even the constant whisper of air recycling systems seemed to pause. This was the most solemn day in their calendar, when they remembered both their greatest victory and their greatest regret. 4 millennia ago, we discovered a species on the 3rd planet of a small yellow star. They called themselves humans and they called their world Earth. Zethkar paused, letting the weight of those words settle. At first we were hopeful. They showed signs of intelligence, of creativity, of the potential to join our peaceful community. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew this story, but it was tradition to tell it again each year, to remember why the choice had been made. But we learned that these humans were different. They were violent beyond measure. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They poisoned their own world with weapons that could destroy all life. They spread across their planet like a disease, consuming everything in their path. The Vorthak delegation nodded in agreement. Several other species made sounds of approval. The ethereal collective's representative pulsed with soft blue light, their way of showing concern. Worse still, Zethkar continued, they were advancing too quickly. In just a few centuries, they went from simple tools to space travel. Their technology grew faster than their wisdom. Our projections showed that within 1,000 years they would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. They would bring their wars, their hunger, their chaos to every peaceful world. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavier. This was the part of the story that still troubled some delegates even after all these years. The choice was clear, though it was not easy. We could not allow such a species to threaten the peace we had built over millions of years. The cleansing was swift and merciful. Their world was sterilized from orbit, and their small colonies beyond their planet were eliminated. Not one human survived. Silence stretched across the chamber. Some delegates bowed their heads in what humans might have called prayer. Others simply sat in contemplation. In the 4,000 years since that day, Zethkar said, his voice growing stronger, our galaxy has known unprecedented peace. 7 species work together in harmony. Wars are a thing of the past. Resources are shared fairly. Technology advances at a careful, controlled pace. We have created the perfect civilization. The delegates began to stir, their earlier solemnity giving way to pride. This was the good part of the story, the part that justified everything. Trade flows freely between our worlds. The Kashari provide their unmatched engineering skills. The Talnari share their gift for mathematics and computation. The Gorthak offer their strength and endurance. The Vorthak contribute our wisdom and memory. The ethereal collective brings their understanding of energy and matter. The Zephyrians provide their speed and communication networks, and the ancient Primarchs guide us all with their vast experience. Each species mentioned responded with their traditional gesture of acknowledgement. The chamber filled with the sounds and lights of 7 different forms of approval. We have eliminated poverty, ended disease, and brought order to the cosmos. The difficult choice we made 4,000 years ago has been proven correct by the peace that followed. Zethkar was about to continue when something strange happened. Every display screen in the chamber flickered. The translation systems buzzed with static. For a moment, the careful environmental controls wavered, and delegates gasped as unfamiliar air touched their breathing apparatus. Then, clear as starlight, a voice spoke through every communication system in the chamber. It was not translated, but somehow every being present understood it perfectly. The voice was calm, measured, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. We remember, we return, we reclaim. The voice was followed by silence more complete than anything the chamber had ever experienced. Every delegate sat frozen, their minds trying to process what they had heard. Zethkar's clawed hands gripped the speaking platform. Technical difficulties, he managed to say, though his voice shook. Please ignore the interruption while our systems are checked. But even as he spoke, alerts began flooding the chamber's emergency networks. The message had not been limited to the council chamber. It had appeared on every screen, every communication device, every AI system across all 7 homeworlds simultaneously. The voice had spoken in perfect galactic standard, but there was something else about it. Something that made the translator systems work differently, as if the words themselves carried meaning beyond language. Security protocols are now active, announced the chamber's AI system. All external communications are being monitored. Please remain in your seats while the situation is assessed. But the delegates were already moving. Representatives huddled with their species advisors, speaking in urgent whispers. The ethereal collective's representative flashed rapid patterns of red and orange light, their equivalent of panic. The Kashari delegation was already accessing their personal communication devices, trying to contact their home world. Zethkar remained at the platform, but his ceremonial robes now felt heavy and uncomfortable. The voice had sounded familiar in a way that made his scales itch with unease. It reminded him of something from the archives, something from the old recordings of the humans before the cleansing. "Attention all delegates," came another announcement, this time from the Council's military coordinator. "Long-range sensors have detected multiple unidentified objects approaching from the outer rim. The objects do not match any known ship designs or energy signatures." The chamber erupted in confused voices and conflicting translations. Some delegates demanded immediate evacuation to their home worlds. Others called for the activation of the Council's defense fleets. The Primarchs, ancient and wise, simply sat in their sealed environment pods, their thoughts unreadable. Zethkar tried to restore order, but his voice was lost in the chaos. The perfect day of remembrance had become something else entirely. The voice that had interrupted the ceremony echoed in his mind. "We remember, we return, we reclaim." As reports continued to flood in from across Council space, one fact became impossible to ignore. The unidentified objects were not using conventional faster-than-light travel. They were not following any known approach vectors. They were simply appearing in sensor range as if they had materialized from nothing, and they were heading directly for the Council's most important worlds. The last time anyone had seen technology like this, it had belonged to a species that was supposed to be extinct, a species that had been wiped from the galaxy 4,000 years ago to ensure the peace and safety of all civilized beings. Zethkar looked up at the chamber's main display, where the tracking data showed dozens of unknown contacts moving through space with purpose and coordination that spoke of advanced intelligence. The perfect peace of 4 millennia was about to end, and the Galactic Council was about to learn that some choices have consequences that echo across the ages. Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor stood in the observation deck of the flagship Endurance, watching the swirl of hyperspace outside the reinforced windows. At 93 years old, she was considered young by the standards of her people. The genetic modifications and life extension treatments developed over 4,000 years had given humans lifespans that would have seemed impossible to their ancestors on Earth. Behind her, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved between stations with practiced efficiency, their movements precise and economical. Every person on the ship had been born for this moment, trained from childhood for the day when humanity would return to claim what had been taken from them. "Admiral," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Commander Marcus Webb, her tactical officer and one of the few people aboard who understood the full scope of their mission. "All fleet elements have reported successful translation to real space. We are in position." Sarah nodded but did not immediately respond. She was thinking about her great-great-grandmother, who had been aboard one of the colony ships that escaped Earth's destruction. The old woman had lived to be 140, spending her final decades telling stories about blue skies and green grass to children who would never see such things. "How many ships do we have in the final count?" Sarah asked. 12,000 combat vessels, Admiral. Another 8,000 support ships. The entire surviving population of humanity is either aboard these ships or manning our hidden bases. 20,000 ships. It sounded like a massive fleet, but Sarah knew it represented only a fraction of what humanity might have been. Earth had held 10 billion people when the Council destroyed it. The colony ships and research stations that escaped had carried maybe 3 million survivors. But those 3 million had learned something that the galaxy's comfortable species had forgotten. They had learned how to survive when everything was taken away. "Send the message to all fleet commanders," Sarah said. "Begin Phase 1. As Webb moved to carry out her orders, Sarah's mind drifted back to the stories she had been told as a child. Stories of Earth with its vast oceans and changing seasons. Stories of cities that touched the sky and forests that stretched beyond the horizon. Stories of a world where humans belonged, where they had evolved over millions of years. The Council had taken all of that away in a single day. They had decided that humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too aggressive to be allowed to exist. They had passed judgment on an entire species and carried out the sentence without mercy or hesitation. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that the few humans who escaped would simply fade away, scattered and broken by the loss of their home world. They had not considered what might happen if those survivors chose to remember instead of forget. The first generation after Earth's destruction had been consumed by grief and rage. They had tried desperate attacks against Council outposts, suicide missions that accomplished nothing except to confirm the Council's belief that humans were violent and irrational. The second generation had been smarter. They had hidden in the empty spaces between stars in systems too poor or dangerous for the Council's comfortable species to inhabit. They had learned to survive on worlds where the atmosphere was poison and the radiation would kill most beings in hours. The third generation had begun to plan. "Admiral," came another voice from the bridge. "We are receiving responses from the advanced teams. The quantum tunneling networks are operational. All primary targets have been surveyed and marked." Sarah smiled, though there was no warmth in the expression. The Council species had grown soft in their 4,000 years of peace. They built their worlds in convenient systems with stable stars and pleasant climates. They used predictable shipping routes and followed established protocols for everything. Humans had learned to think differently. When you lived in the space between spaces, when your home was wherever your ship happened to be, you developed different priorities. Survival mattered more than comfort. Adaptability mattered more than tradition. "How long until we can begin deployment?" Sarah asked. "Phase 1 vessels are already in position, Admiral. We can begin the demonstration whenever you give the word." Sarah walked to her command chair, a simple seat that had been salvaged from one of the original colony ships. Every fleet commander sat in a similar chair, a reminder of where they had come from and why they were here. "Open a channel to all ships," she said. "This is Admiral Chen Okafor. Today we begin the work our ancestors started 4,000 years ago. Today we remind the galaxy that humanity endures. Her." Words were carried instantly to every ship in the fleet through quantum communication networks that the Council's scientists would have said were impossible. Humans had learned to do many impossible things during their long exile. "We are not here for conquest," Sarah continued. "We are not here to build an empire or to rule over other species. We are here to reclaim what was stolen from us. We are here to ensure that no species will ever again face the choice that Earth faced." She paused, thinking of all the generations who had lived and died in exile, who had spent their lives working toward this moment without ever expecting to see it. The Council believes they know what humanity is. They think we are the same species they destroyed 4,000 years ago. They are wrong. We have become something they cannot understand, something they cannot predict, something they cannot stop. Throughout the fleet, humans who had never seen a natural sky or breathed unfiltered air listened to their admiral's words. They were the children of exile, raised on stories of loss and shaped by centuries of hard choices. We have studied them for longer than their civilizations have existed. We know their weaknesses, their fears, their every habit and tradition. We have walked among them without them knowing. We have learned their languages, their customs, their technologies. This was the truth that would terrify the Council when they learned it. For centuries, humans had been infiltrating their space, not as conquerors or spies, but as students. They had observed and learned and prepared. They made us homeless, so we learned to make our home in the void. They scattered us, so we learned to be everywhere at once. They tried to erase us, so we became unforgettable. Sarah's voice grew stronger as she spoke, carrying the weight of 4 millennia of determination. Today, Phase 1 begins. We will show the Council that their perfect peace was built on a lie. We will show them that the choice they made has consequences. We will show them what humanity has become. She gestured to Webb, who nodded and began issuing orders to the fleet commanders. "Remember your training. Remember your purpose. Remember Earth." As the channel closed, Sarah turned back to the observation window. In the distance, she could see the first phase targets, isolated Council outposts, communication relays, and sensor networks. Small targets that would send a message without causing massive casualties. The humans were not monsters. They did not seek to repeat the Council's mistake by destroying entire populations, but they would show the galaxy's comfortable species what it felt like to be vulnerable, to be afraid, to realize that their safe and ordered universe was not as secure as they had believed. The Endurance shuddered slightly as its weapon systems came online. Around the fleet, thousands of other ships did the same, weapons that used principles the Council had never discovered, powered by energy sources that should not have been possible. Sarah closed her eyes and whispered the words that every human child learned before they could walk. We remember Earth. We remember the blue sky and the green grass. We remember the choice that was made. We remember and we return. The demonstration was about to begin. Counselor Zethkar stood in the war room of the Council's military headquarters, staring at the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red markers indicated the sites of human attacks. In just 72 hours, those markers had spread across hundreds of systems. "Explain this to me again," he said to Fleet Admiral Korvax, the Kashari military commander who had been hastily recalled from retirement. "How did they bypass our sensor networks?" Admiral Korvax gestured with one of his forearms at the tactical display. His beetle-like features showed the strain of the past 3 days, and his usually perfect military posture had begun to sag. "They appeared inside our perimeter, Counselor. Not at the edge of our space, not at the standard jump points. They materialized directly inside our territory, sometimes within a few light hours of major installations." Zethkar's scales rippled with agitation. "That is impossible. Our physics models clearly show that faster-than-light travel requires specific entry and exit vectors. Mass cannot simply appear in normal space without following the established laws. Apparently, Counselor, the humans have developed technology that operates by different laws." The admission hung in the air between them. For 4,000 years, the Council had been the undisputed masters of galactic technology. They had refined and perfected every aspect of space travel, communication, and warfare. The idea that an extinct species could have developed superior technology was almost impossible to accept. "What about casualties?" Zethkar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Surprisingly light, Counselor. The humans have been targeting infrastructure rather than population centers. Communication relays, sensor stations, supply depots. They seem to be trying to blind us rather than kill us." This information was both reassuring and terrifying. Reassuring because it meant the humans were not simply mindless killers seeking revenge. Terrifying because it suggested they had a plan that went beyond simple destruction. "Have we been able to capture any of their ships?" Admiral Korvax made a sound that might have been laughter if it had not been so bitter. "No, Counselor. When our forces arrive at attack sites, the human ships are simply gone. They leave no debris, no energy signatures, no trace that they were ever there except for the damage they have caused." A new voice entered the conversation as Ambassador Theris of the Ethereal Collective materialized near the holographic display. The being was roughly humanoid in shape but seemed to be made of shifting patterns of light and energy. "The humans have been studying us for far longer than we realized," Theris said, their words appearing directly in the minds of everyone present, rather than being spoken aloud. "We have analyzed the pattern of their attacks. They know exactly where our critical systems are located, exactly which targets will cause maximum disruption with minimum loss of life." Zethkar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. "You are suggesting they have been observing us for centuries?" "More than observing, Counselor. We have reviewed our records for the past 1,000 years. Many incidents we attributed to accidents or natural phenomena now appear to have been human reconnaissance operations. The implications were staggering. It meant that while the Council had believed themselves to be the masters of the galaxy, humans had been walking among them, learning their secrets, mapping their defenses. "What do we know about their current capabilities?" Zethkar asked. Admiral Korvax manipulated the holographic display, bringing up images captured by long-range sensors during the brief moments when human ships had been visible. Their vessels appear to use some form of phase-shifting technology. They can become partially intangible, allowing them to pass through normal matter and energy barriers. Their weapons seem to operate on principles we do not understand, able to cause damage without generating the energy signatures we would expect. Zethkar studied the images. The human ships were sleek and organic-looking, more like living creatures than mechanical constructs. They bore no resemblance to the crude vessels that had escaped Earth's destruction 4,000 years ago. "Most disturbing of all," Admiral Korvax continued, are the reports from the few sites where our forces arrived quickly enough to engage them directly. What reports? The Admiral hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with what he was about to say. The human ships appear to be crewed by humans, Counselor, but these humans are operating in environments that should be lethal to their species. Elaborate. At the Keshari shipyards, our security forces detected human boarding parties inside vessels with methane atmospheres and gravity levels that should crush any carbon-based life form. Yet the humans moved through these environments as if they were perfectly adapted to them. Thyris pulsed with concerned colors. We have similar reports from Talnari research stations. Humans operating in zero-gravity environments with radiation levels that would kill most species in minutes. Zethkar felt his worldview shifting in uncomfortable ways. The humans they had destroyed 4,000 years ago had been limited to their home planet's environment. These humans seem to have adapted to survive anywhere. Recommendation, Admiral? We must mobilize the full might of the combined fleet, Counselor. Every ship, every weapon, every resource at our disposal. The humans may have superior technology, but we have numbers. The 7 species of the Council can field over 50,000 warships. It was an impressive number, representing the combined military might of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Surely no force could stand against such overwhelming superiority. Do it, Zethkar ordered. Send word to all Council worlds. Full military mobilization. Every species will contribute their maximum capability. As Admiral Korvax began issuing orders, reports continued to stream in from across Council space. The human attacks were becoming bolder, striking at larger and more important targets. But they were also becoming more puzzling. Counselor, came a voice from one of the communication stations. We are receiving a transmission from the Keshari homeworld. They are requesting immediate assistance. What is happening there? The humans have attacked their primary orbital shipyards, but instead of destroying them, they appear to have captured them intact, along with the entire workforce. Zethkar's blood turned cold. Capturing enemy resources was one thing, but taking prisoners suggested the humans had plans beyond simple revenge. Are the prisoners being harmed? No, Counselor. Initial reports suggest the humans are treating them well, but they are keeping them isolated and appear to be conducting some form of medical examinations. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans were not just attacking random targets. They were studying the Council species, learning about their biology, their technology, their capabilities. How long until the combined fleet can be assembled? Zethkar asked. 72 hours for the advance elements, Counselor. Another week for full deployment. It seemed like an eternity. Every hour that passed gave the humans more time to study their enemies, more time to prepare whatever plan they were executing. There is something else. Counselor, Thyra said, their energy form flickering with distress. We have been analyzing the quantum signatures of the human communications. They are not using conventional faster-than-light transmission. What are they using? We believe they have developed some form of instantaneous communication that operates outside normal space-time. It would allow them to coordinate their forces across the entire galaxy without any delay. Zethkar sat down heavily in his command chair. Everything the Council thought they knew about warfare, about technology, about the very nature of the universe, was being challenged by an enemy they had thought extinct. Counselor, came another urgent voice. Priority message from the Primarch Council. They are requesting an immediate emergency session. The Primarchs were the oldest and wisest beings in the galaxy, ancient creatures who had guided the Council for millions of years. If they were calling an emergency session, the situation was even more serious than Zethkar had realized. Tell them I will be there within the hour, he said. As he prepared to leave, Zethkar looked one last time at the tactical display. The red markers showing human attacks now covered nearly a quarter of Council space, and if the pattern held, they would continue to spread until every world, every system, every corner of their civilization was under threat. The perfect peace that had lasted for 4 millennia was ending, and Zethkar was beginning to suspect that it would not return anytime soon. Commander Marcus Webb stood in the medical bay of the captured Keshari research vessel, Scientific Progress, watching as Dr. Elena Vasquez completed her examination of the alien prisoners. The Keshari were insect-like beings with hard outer shells and multiple limbs, well adapted to the high-gravity worlds they preferred. How are they responding to the interviews? Marcus asked. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her notes, her expression thoughtful. Better than expected. Once they realized we were not going to harm them, several have become quite cooperative. They seemed genuinely curious about us. Marcus nodded. This was part of the plan that many humans had struggled to accept. Instead of simply destroying their enemies, they were studying them, learning about them, trying to understand what 4,000 years of peace had done to the galaxy's species. What have you learned? The Kashari have not fought a real war in over 3,000 years, Dr. Vasquez replied. Their military training is mostly theoretical. They know how to operate their weapons and ships, but they have no experience with actual combat stress or tactical adaptation. This information was being gathered across the fleet as human forces captured more council vessels and installations. Each species was being studied carefully, their strengths and weaknesses cataloged, their psychological profiles developed. There is something else, Dr. Vasquez continued. The genetic samples we have taken show something interesting. All 7 council species have become more genetically uniform over the past few millennia. Their populations have lost much of the genetic diversity that drives evolution and adaptation. Marcus understood the implications immediately. While humans had been forced to adapt to survive in harsh environments, becoming stronger and more resilient, the council species had grown comfortable and static in their peaceful worlds. How long until Phase 2 begins? Dr. Vasquez asked. Admiral Chen Okafor is waiting for reports from all capture teams. Once we have enough data on all 7 species, we will proceed to the next stage. Marcus left the medical bay and made his way to the ship's bridge, where his tactical team was analyzing the intelligence they had gathered. The scientific progress had been conducting biological research for the Council, and its databases contained detailed information about the genetics and physiology of all Council species. Commander, called Lieutenant Hayes from her station, we have completed our analysis of the Kashari medical records. You need to see this. Marcus approached her workstation, where genetic charts and population data scrolled across multiple screens. What did you find? The Kashari population has dropped by 30% over the past 1,000 years. Their birth rate has been declining steadily, and they have been using artificial genetic manipulation to prevent hereditary diseases. Why is that significant? Because it means their immune systems have become dependent on medical technology. Without their hospitals and genetic treatments, they would be vulnerable to diseases that would not affect a naturally evolved population. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. The humans were not planning to use conventional weapons against the Council species. They were planning something far more sophisticated and targeted. Send this data to the Admiral immediately, he ordered, and prepare a full briefing on Kashari vulnerabilities for the Tactical Committee. As Lieutenant Hayes worked at her station, Marcus received a priority communication from the fleet command ship. Admiral Chen Okafor's image appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. Commander Webb, report to the Endurance immediately. We are beginning Phase 2 coordination. Marcus transferred command to his second officer and took a shuttle to the flagship. The journey gave him time to think about how much the human plan had evolved over the centuries. The original survivors had wanted simple revenge. They had dreamed of building a fleet large enough to destroy the Council worlds and make them pay for Earth's destruction. But as generations passed and human understanding grew, the plan had become more sophisticated. Why simply destroy the Council when they could do something far more permanent? Why repeat the Council's mistake when they could ensure it never happened again? The Endurance was the largest ship in the human fleet, but it was also the oldest. Parts of its hull had been salvaged from the original colony, ships that escaped Earth. Walking through its corridors was like walking through 4,000 years of human history. Marcus found Admiral Chen Okafor in the fleet's Strategic Planning Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the current state of Council space. Red markers indicated captured installations, blue markers showed ongoing operations, and yellow markers designated high-priority targets for Phase 2. Commander, the Admiral said without looking away from the displays, what is your assessment of the Kashari capabilities? Technologically advanced but tactically weak, Admiral. They have not fought a real war in millennia. Their forces are trained for patrol duties and disaster response, not for combat against an adaptive enemy. And their vulnerabilities? Genetic uniformity has made them susceptible to targeted biological agents. Their dependence on medical technology means that disrupting their healthcare systems would cause significant population stress. Admiral Chen Okafor nodded. We are seeing similar patterns across all Council species. The Talnari have become so dependent on their quantum computers that they cannot perform basic calculations without technological assistance. The Gorthek have bred out their natural aggression to the point where they become paralyzed by violent situations. Marcus studied the tactical displays. What about the Ethereal Collective? The most interesting case. They have become so focused on energy manipulation that they have lost the ability to interact with physical matter in any meaningful way. Without their technological intermediaries, they are essentially helpless in the material universe. The pattern was clear. 4,000 years of peace and comfort had not just made the Council species soft. It had made them fundamentally dependent on the systems and technologies that maintained their civilization. Admiral, are we proceeding with the biological warfare option? Admiral Chen Okafor turned to face him, and Marcus saw the weight of command in her eyes. No, Commander. We are not going to become what they thought we were, but we are going to show them what happens when their perfect systems begin to fail. She gestured to the displays, where new information was being added in real time. For the past 6 months, our infiltration teams have been placing quantum viruses in the Council's computer networks. Not to destroy them, but to take control of them. Marcus felt his breath catch. The scope of the operation was staggering. All their networks? Every major system, Commander. Transportation, communication, resource distribution, environmental controls, medical systems. We can shut down any or all of them with a single command. The implications were overwhelming. The Council species had built their entire civilization on interconnected systems that they had never imagined could be compromised. They had traded independence for efficiency, self-reliance for comfort. When do we activate the viruses? In 72 hours, when their combined fleet arrives at the coordinates we have provided. They think they are coming to destroy us. Instead, they will discover that we already control everything they depend on for survival. Marcus looked at the tactical displays with new understanding. The human ships scattered across Council space were not just conducting raids. They were taking positions for a coordinated operation that would demonstrate the true extent of human capabilities. What are our demands going to be? Admiral Chen Okafor was quiet for a long moment. We are going to offer them a choice, Commander. The same choice they offered humanity 4,000 years ago. Which is, submit to our judgment or face the consequences of resistance. But unlike them, we will give them the opportunity to prove they can change, to show that they can learn to coexist with species that think differently than they do. Marcus understood now why the plan had taken 4 millennia to develop. This was not revenge. This was justice. The humans were not seeking to destroy the Council species, but to force them to face the same fear and helplessness that humanity had experienced. And if they refuse, then they will discover what it means to be truly vulnerable, truly dependent on the mercy of a species they tried to eliminate. They will learn what it feels like to have their entire civilization held hostage by the decision of another race. Admiral Chen Okafor turned back to the displays, where reports continued to stream in from across the galaxy. Human forces were in position. The infiltration networks were ready. The moment of truth was approaching. Prepare all ships for Phase 2, Commander. It is time for the galaxy to learn that humanity has returned. And this time, we will not be so easily dismissed. Marcus saluted and left to carry out his orders, knowing that in 72 hours the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. The Council had spent 4,000 years believing they were safe from the consequences of their choices. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the deepest bunker beneath their capital world, surrounded by enough defensive systems to withstand the destruction of the planet's surface. The 7 species' most powerful leaders sat in a circle, their normal diplomatic protocols abandoned in the face of the crisis. Counselor Zethkar looked around the table at faces that showed fear for the first time in millennia. The Primarch Elder, an ancient being whose species had guided the galaxy for millions of years, spoke in a voice heavy with regret. We have lost contact with 70% of our military installations, the Primarch said. Our combined fleet is trapped in the Kepler sector, unable to return to defend our home worlds, and our most critical systems are no longer responding to our commands. The Kashari representative, Admiral Korvax, leaned forward with his forearms folded in despair. The humans have taken control of our transportation networks. Our ships can only go where they allow them to go. Our people are stranded on thousands of worlds. Theorists of the ethereal collective pulsed with dim, frightened colors. They have shut down our energy distribution systems. Entire worlds are going dark. Our people are experiencing cold and darkness for the first time in centuries. The scope of the human operation was becoming clear. They had not simply attacked the Council's military forces. They had infiltrated every aspect of galactic civilization and taken control of the systems that kept billions of beings alive and comfortable. "How many casualties?" asked the HFY war leader, his massive frame tense with suppressed aggression. "Remarkably few," admitted the Talnari science director. "The humans seem to be carefully avoiding actions that would cause mass death. They are making us uncomfortable and afraid, but they are not committing genocide." The word hung in the air, carrying weight that everyone in the room understood. Genocide was what the Council had done to humanity. The humans could be doing the same to them right now, but they were choosing a different path. "What do they want?" Zethkar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. As if summoned by his question, every display screen in the bunker activated simultaneously. The face that appeared was that of an elderly human woman, her features showing the marks of age, but her eyes burning with intelligence and determination. "Members of the Galactic Council," Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor, speaking for the surviving population of humanity." The Council leaders sat in stunned silence. After 4,000 years, they were looking at the face of a species they had tried to erase from existence. "You are no doubt wondering how we have achieved what your experts believed to be impossible," Sarah continued. "The answer is simple. While you spent 4 millennia in comfort and peace, we spent that time learning, adapting, and preparing." Zethkar found his voice. "What do you want from us?" Sarah's expression did not change. "The same thing you wanted from us 4,000 years ago, Counselor Zethkar. A choice." The use of his name sent a chill through Zethkar's body. The humans knew who he was, knew his personal history, had probably been watching him for years. "You will surrender control of your governments to human oversight," Sarah said. "You will submit to judgment for the crime of genocide. And you will prove that you have learned to coexist peacefully with species that think differently than you do." The HFY war leader slammed his massive fist on the table. "This is outrageous. You cannot demand the surrender of entire civilizations." Sarah's image turned to look directly at him. "War leader Thrax, your species perfected the orbital bombardment techniques that were used to destroy Earth. You personally commanded the fleet that sterilized the human colonies in the Tau Ceti system. Do you really want to discuss what is outrageous?" The war leader fell silent, his aggression crumbling in the face of Sarah's calm certainty. "You have controlled our galaxy for 4,000 years, Sarah continued. "In that time, you have eliminated 16 species that you deemed too aggressive or unpredictable to be allowed to exist. We are not the first, Counselor Zethkar. We are simply the first to survive your judgment." This information hit the Council leaders like a physical blow. Most of them had not known about the other extinct species, had not realized the scope of their civilization's crimes. "We offer you the same choice you offered those 16 species," Sarah said. "Submit to our authority and prove you can change, or face the consequences of resistance." The Talnari science director spoke up, her voice shaking. "What would human authority mean for our people?" "It means you will learn to live with uncertainty," Sarah replied. "It means your children will grow up knowing that their survival depends on their ability to adapt and cooperate, not on their ability to eliminate potential threats." Thyrus pulsed with confused colors. "But that would mean chaos, conflict, the end of our perfect peace." Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "Yes, it would mean the end of your perfect peace built on the graves of extinct species. It would mean accepting that diversity and unpredictability are the price of a truly living galaxy." The Primarch Elder spoke for the first time since Sarah's appearance. "And if we refuse? Then you will discover what it means to be truly helpless, Ondine," Sarah said. "We control your transportation. We control your communications. We control your energy systems and your food distribution networks. We can keep you alive, but we can also make your existence very unpleasant." Zethkar felt the weight of history crushing down on him. This was the moment when the Council would face the same choice they had forced on so many others. Submit or die. "How do we know you will not simply destroy us once we surrender?" he asked. "Because we are not you," Sarah replied simply. We have spent 4,000 years learning from your mistake. We know that diversity makes a civilization stronger, not weaker. We know that extinction is always the wrong choice. The bunker fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Each species representative looked at the others, reading in their faces the same fear and uncertainty that they themselves felt. We need time to consider, the Primarch Elder said finally. You have 24 hours, Sarah replied. After that we begin Phase 3, and I promise you, Counselor Zethkar, you do not want to experience Phase 3. The screens went dark, leaving the council leaders alone with their thoughts and their fears. Options? Zethkar asked, though he already knew there were none. We could try to fight, the HFY War leader said, but his voice lacked conviction. With what? Admiral Korvax asked. They control our ships. Our weapon systems are under their command. We cannot even communicate with our homeworlds without their permission. We could try to negotiate, suggested the Talnari science director. What do we have to negotiate with? Theris asked. They hold all the advantages. We are completely at their mercy. The truth of their situation settled over the council leaders like a suffocating blanket. For the first time in 4,000 years, they were experiencing what their victims had felt: helplessness, fear, the terrible knowledge that their fate was in the hands of others. They are offering us something the other extinct species never received, the Primarch Elder said quietly. A chance to survive and change, Zethkar nodded slowly. The choice is simple. We can accept human authority and try to prove we can coexist with them. Or we can resist and face the same fate we inflicted on Earth. One by one, the council leaders looked around the table and saw the same conclusion in each other's faces. The age of council dominance was over. The perfect peace they had built on genocide and fear had finally met its end. All in favor of accepting the human terms? Zethkar asked, 7 hands, claws, tendrils, and energy manifestations rose in unanimous agreement. The Galactic Council, which had ruled the galaxy for 4 millennia, formally surrendered to the species they had tried to erase from existence. Outside the bunker, across thousands of worlds, billions of beings would soon learn that their universe had changed forever. Some would resist. Some would adapt. Some would discover that life under human oversight was not the catastrophe they had feared. But all of them would learn the lesson that humanity had spent 4,000 years preparing to teach. That the choice to destroy is always the wrong choice, and that true peace can only be built on acceptance of diversity, not its elimination. The galaxy would never be the same. But perhaps for the first time in millennia, it would have a chance to become something better.